Welcome to my channel. Today's a good day. I just love waking up in the morning and coming down to my sewing room and seeing my finished project on the wall. But here's what I've been doing for the last week. Finishing up 2 projects. Wow! Hello YouTube friends. I finished quilting my quilt and I used the walking foot to be able to machine quilt this fabulous little quilt. And I really think that the color on the backside is a lovely turquoise polka dot fabric. And when I did this with the walking foot, it was quite easy to just eyeball the lines as I was machine quilting it. And I just started at one side and went all the way across to the other side. And then when I got here, I just came back and did this all up there again. And then when I had one direction done, I made sure to do the other side and go in the opposite direction. And with not very much difficulty, it was very easy to machine quilt this size with a walking foot, and clearly I think it makes a really nice effect on this quilt. I particularly like this one. It's really fun to do. And now I am working on that big colorful quilt that I made before this one and had to put away because of the ice storm. But I'm doing something very different with the machine quilting for this quilt. Because the pattern on the front is very busy and there's lots of lines, the lines are all diagonals. And if I follow the lines, it would be all right to quilt along those diagonal lines. But I thought in this case, I would do something a little different and make kind of a swoop. So arbitrarily, I just sort of am going to sew a line with my walking foot that has a curve to it. I start at the top and go to the side and just keep going and use my spacer bar to continue the whole way down the quilt. That way I don't have to follow the diagonal lines and stay very close to that pattern. I didn't want to emphasize that pattern because where they cross over is going to give me little squares, and I didn't want that. So here's what I'm doing. I'll show you. The quilting on here is really very difficult to see with so much pattern and so many distractions. I have quilted half of this quilt already, and it's really difficult to see the stitches. So when I use my spacer bar, it's hard to find the pattern because I made a big swoop on the fabric. So what I am doing is maybe a little unconventional, but I am machine quilting from the back side. I'm putting the back side facing up so I can see the previous row of stitching that I've made. And I know it's hard to see even on a video. It's hard to see the stitching because I've selected a thread that is very close to the color of the fabric. And on the front side, that light green thread just blends in and I can hardly see it over most of the fabrics. So I found it a little bit daunting to quilt after I started, but it's working out well if I do the backside facing up and I can see what I'm doing. I'll show you. Okay, I just sit down and get comfortable. I have to make sure that I have things right there so I can reach them, and I have part of the roll ready to go. And the rest is on my knees here, not dragging on the floor. I have my settings there, perfect. I use a slightly longer stitch length. And I'm looking for the last row. Here it is, the last row. And I did make a wave because I thought it would be kind of fun and easy to follow. And really it is. So I just am rolling this part up here, and it's going to go through there. Always stop with the needle down. And I can see now with the rows here, I can follow the line. With this quilt, I am using the same thread on the top as on the bobbin. And if I want to turn it around and machine quilt it from the front, because of whatever reason, I can turn it around and quilt it with the same thread on the top and the bottom. But so far, I've appreciated being able to do this quilting on the back side, on the backing, because it stands out much clearer for me to see. And there's really no difference quilting on the back side or the front. Sometimes I've quilted on the back side because the pattern of the fabric on the back side is more conducive to machine quilting with a walking foot than with trying to do it on the front. So it doesn't matter really which side you pin as the front or the back, because it's going to get quilted throughout anyway. So why not try quilting on the back side? Maybe you will find it easier too. You really just have to be careful of the pins. Take the pins out a couple of rows ahead and you will be fine. And I find that having this extra light at the side allows me to see the shadows of the stitching line, and that helps me to pick out the stitching lines a little easier too. Having very good lighting when you're machine quilting is always a good thing. Gee, I sounded like Martha Stewart there, didn't I? Use my hands and press the fabric out so that it's straight. And there's really no need to rush. Just take your time, stitch, 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 and you'll get there at the end. And the pattern that I'm quilting is just a nice sort of wave pattern on the fabric. And all I did when I started was just do a curve, and then I just keep my spacer bar here at the distance I want to quilt. You know, when I'm not making a video, I have my music blaring in the background. I've been listening to a lot of folk songs recently, and they've been quite interesting. I've found a whole bunch of new folk singers I like. So generally, I can do 3 or 4, maybe 5 rows of machine quilting. Then I'll stop, turn it over, and check the other side to make sure that there are no pleats or gathers or tucks. But so far, this has worked out great. I really enjoy the process of quilting with my sewing machine. I feel the fabric. I can see any imperfections as I'm going along, and maybe I could fix some of those things if I need to. But I like looking at fabrics, and it's kind of different looking at the backing because there's not much variation there, is there? But I really do love seeing all the fabrics on the front when I'm quilting them. Reminiscing, thinking where the fabrics came from. Oh, sometimes it's a real treat to see what I've put together and thought about where they've come from. But that's part of the quilting process, isn't it? Now, this sewing on the back side is a good thing. I have done it a couple of times before. And the only thing is you really have to be careful of where the pins are. And I haven't hit a pin yet, but that doesn't mean I won't. You can feel them through the fabric, but I like I said, I take it off the sewing machine every 3 or 4 rows and check the other side. Look at it, smooth it out, and take the pins out that are coming soon. And I've found it works really well for me. So I'll just continue this. So when I'm pulling it back through, I look at the underside just to make sure. And I feel it to make sure there are no pins on the other side. See, I can tell there's a pin right here, but that's a couple rows away yet. One here, a couple rows away. That's all right. So I'm just going to check the other side, make sure that it's fine. And it's fine. Perfect. So so it's all fine and it's working like a charm. I think exploring some alternative methods often results in something unique, but works for me is a good philosophy. So I'm just going to finish quilting this. I'll trim the edges and put my binding on. I should be done with this now sometime today. Yay! Then I can start something new. The quilting is finished and I've placed it up on the wall. You can see the marks on the back where the stitching lines are. And if you look with a light, you can see it as well. But on the front, it's impossible to see the lines. And actually sewing the quilting on the back was the best thing I ever did to make that go quickly. So this quilt is finished, but I always do something with the leftover pieces on my table. I never fold them up and just put them away in a bag or put them in my closet for someday. I either sew strips onto a piece of batting to make a quilt in progress, or I sew the pieces together in squares like this, and you'll just have to come back and see what I do with these things. That's a future video and another quilt. I hope you enjoyed this particular video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And I hope to see you soon. Bye.